Thanks so much for visiting Tina Butty on YouTube. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, and welcome back to Tina Butty Podcast with me, Erica.
And me, Dominic.
And today is going to be a lot more somber type of an episode.
Somber episode, yeah.
Yeah, because yesterday was the anniversary of September 11th, the attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon.
18 years.
Yeah, I can't even believe that.
No, it's gone by quick.
Oh my God,
it really has gone by quick because September 2000, I was probably about 15.
Yeah. So since yesterday was the anniversary, we just thought we'd talk about our memory of
it
of the day, you know, because you have to, as horrible as it is, and it seems like every year, you know, you've got these memorials and everything, but with each passing year, people not forget, but you kind of just you're getting on with life, and it seems farther and farther away, even though we're now saying, oh, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
For people who lost people in it, obviously not, you know.
There's a whole generation now, 18 years.
It's a whole generation.
You have a new generation of adults who were just born or not even born.
Not even born yet, yeah. Some of them weren't, yeah.
So yeah, we just thought we would talk about our memory, and usually we try to keep things pretty lighthearted.
This is probably a somber one.
Yeah, so I mean, if you
might not want to listen to
it.
If
you're not interested,
then we understand.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I say, we try to not get too serious or too deep with our podcast.
Too deep. But this one lighthearted usually.
But this one is going to be a bit deeper than normal. And you want to just go ahead and...
Yeah, I mean, well, my recollection of it was I was coming home from school. It was about 3 p.m. because I don't know when it happened over here. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So it was about 5-6 hours, or maybe 4. I'm not really sure. I mean,
it's 5 hours difference from New York to Britain.
Is it 5 hours?
Mm-hmm,
oh, okay, yeah.
Because it's 6 hours from...
So
Texas.
It was about 2 o'clock. I was coming home from school with my mates, and I remember on the way back from school, I said to my mates, I'm going to stop off in the pub because I know my dad would be there about now. You know, he's gone down there now. So I stopped off and then walked in, and everybody was just like, you know, glued looking at the TV. And I was like, I was just talking, you know, because the TV was, I remember when you come in to the pub, the TV was above the door. So everybody was just kind of like, when I opened the door, everybody was kind of...
facing toward you.
There wasn't too many people in there because it was like a daytime, lunchtime kind of scenario. My dad was there, though. And, you know, they were having a drink and just watching the TV. And I was just like talking. I was like, I'm just going to, you know, whatever. Can't remember what I was saying to him. You know, I was going to go to my mate's house or something so I wouldn't be home when he got home, you know. So to not to worry, you know. One of my dad's friends, he goes, America's been attacked, you know. Yeah. And I was just like, what? What do you mean America's been attacked? You know, there was the image of the tower just smoking, you know.
Yeah.
And it was BBC and they were just like talking about it, and I couldn't really hear over the din of the pub because life was going on, you know. I mean, people were still buying drinks or whatever, you know. And I was just, what do you mean America's been attacked? He was like, America's been attacked. And my first thought was, what do you mean America's been attacked? By who? Aliens? What are you talking about? By who?
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't know yet. And there's a lot of people going, it might have been Russia. It might have been Russia. You know, Cold War started up again or something. I remember someone saying that, and I was like, what is going on?
That would have been more than a Cold War.
Yeah. You know, just America's been attacked. I was like, it might have been the Russians are trying to start a war or something. I remember someone saying that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what do you mean the Russians trying to start a war? That was, you know, and then I was just like, okay, you know, and I watched a little bit of it, and then I went back out because my mate was still out there, and I said to him, there's this thing that's happened, you know, in America, you know, in New York, you know. Planes went into the tower, and he was just like, what? And he thought I was making it up. He thought I was just like, some crazy story I was telling him or winding him up. I was like, no. And he was like, we'll just go around my grand's house now. We'll see. And, of course, as soon as the grand goes, America's been attacked.
It makes sense because in Britain and Europe obviously were used to terrorism.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can't really say
IRA.
not. The IRA. I mean, not unlike a huge attack like that. Something like that was quite a thing. But I mean, it didn't
terrorism happen over here.
It didn't.
We didn't have, we had a couple things here and there.
Yeah.
But nothing like that, and nothing very.
That was the first time, because a lot of people were like, oh well, now they know what it's like or whatever, to have terrorists on your doorstep and stuff like that, and they were talking about the IRA and stuff, because I mean the IRA. Quick brief history lesson. The IRA was the Irish Republican Army who I'd say terrorized Britain during like the late 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. And they used a lot of people, it's one of the things, it's like a lot of people say, oh, there's no bins in Britain, like Americans like, oh, I used to go to in the 90s, they'd be like, there's no bins anywhere.
Yeah.
I can't put anything in bins. It's because the IRA used to put bombs in bins a lot and blow them up in city centres and stuff, not all the time, but it was like enough, to like freak everyone out to just take the bins away and just say, take your rubbish home and put it in the bin there.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt you for a second. I said, we obviously had the Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah,
bombing.
Yeah, Oklahoma City, I remember. That was in 1993,
That was in the 90s, yeah. So we had things happen, but not very often. We weren't used to it.
Yeah, I mean, and saying that, it wasn't like Britain was this war zone where terrorists were striking every week,
Right, but still, you guys had wars.
Yeah, we'd had wars. I mean, there was still a genetic memory of that, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, there was still, in 2001, there were probably plenty of people who were still alive and remembered being bombed during World War II.
Yeah, in the port or
whatever.
Which
we didn't have that except for at Pearl Harbor,
Yeah, and
that
Pearl Harbor was Hawaii,
Yeah, that wasn't the contiguous United States,
Contiguous
the 48,
States, yeah.
like they call them. Yeah.
The 48 states.
It wasn't in the 48, so we just had never had any sort of like attack like that.
Oh yeah, no.
Scale, anyway.
I mean, yeah, but that's the thing, when we went, and then, getting back to what I was saying, it went back and, it's going, oh, America's been attacked. And I just remember it was just like, all day news coverage, everything was suspended, it was just talking about it and, and I mean, but, I couldn't imagine like living in New York or anything like that. I think I had a friend actually who lived in New York, and I went online and spoke to them and they said, I heard it. I mean, I wasn't in Manhattan.
Yeah.
They lived up in, I don't know, the Bronx or something, but I heard the explosions and eventually I actually was watching the news when the towers fell, because I think the BBC got a crew out there from their New York office or whatever.
Probably had feed coming in from
everywhere.
Yeah.
And, it's just like, oh, it's still burning and all these people, and we don't know what's happened. A second plane has hit the tower, and we don't know if this is navigational error or, But, a lot of people are going, no, this has got to be a terrorist attack because that's too coincidental that planes would hit the two towers. And then, boom, it just started freaking crumbling, and everybody was like, oh my, the newscaster was like, oh my god, no, oh my god. And he was like screaming into the microphone as it was coming down. And then the other one came down shortly afterwards. And I was just like, what the is going on?
Yeah.
That is bloody horrendous. And then like days later, like for days afterwards, it was like, how did they come down? It's like, well, 2 bloody passenger jets went into them. They're not gonna. They were designed to,
at the top. I mean, they went in at the top too. So
they're not at the very top. They went in like just below it and
close
stuff.
Enough.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were aiming for it really. It was just like aiming for the top or the bottom or whatever they were gonna do. But yeah. And they were just aiming to get the planes in there, but Yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, that's when Al-Qaeda and everything started coming out, and Osama bin Laden.
What can you remember, like, what was the mood or what was the kind of talk at school the next day? Can you remember?
Well, it was just kind of, I mean, we had an assembly and they taught, when was it? Was it a Friday? I seem to remember.
It was a Tuesday.
It was a Tuesday.
Yeah, they just picked the most mundane kind of just...
Because those planes were headed to LA.
Yeah.
You always thought they were headed overseas.
Yeah.
But they were actually headed to LA. They were domestic flights.
But I mean, that's a long distance though. So they were loaded with fuel.
They were loaded with fuel, so that was the
point.
Yeah, that was the point. Yeah.
I can't remember where the fourth plane, where they thought that, I mean, obviously they don't know where it was intended.
They think it was going to be either the White House or...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Or somewhere else. I can't remember where they said. Thought it was either going to be the White House or somewhere, because they tried to get the Pentagon.
I think the reason why I thought that they were... I mean, I don't know when I started thinking that. Sort of within the last few years, I guess. I think where it came from is this story I heard of Paul McCartney being on a plane on the runway in New York City, and he was headed back to London,
and they grounded his flight and everything. Yeah, because the captain came on and was like, "It's been a terrible accident," because they thought it was.
Yeah, well they would. I mean, yeah, I can remember all of that.
I mean. I just remember the mood at school, as you were saying, being kind of just like a somber one. I think we had like a minute's silence and everything for the victims and everything. It was just terrible, really, and everybody was talking about, like, oh, how could this happen, and what does this mean, Yeah. And we know what it meant. I mean, it meant stricter airline security. Nobody. I remember everybody was complaining at airports because, I have to take our shoes and our clothes off now to go through security, and we never had to do that before.
Over here, they weren't. I mean, obviously, they were just like, yeah, please check everything that you possibly can. I mean, they started complaining later on, but
it was a heavy blow for the airline industry. Like it was like.
Oh yeah, nobody wanted to fly.
Nobody wanted to fly.
Because nobody knew.
So a few airlines went bust after that, I mean, so the bigger airlines survived, obviously, and, they made huge conglomerates and took over others.
Well, we were watching that, in America and in Britain, they have a show, or they had a show that was following airlines. I think over here it followed Southwest Airlines.
It was following EasyJet.
And it was following EasyJet at the time, wasn't it?
It was, they were filming on the day that it happened. I mean, that was a long-running, kind of popular show in Britain, airline. And it followed EasyJet and, the ground staff. And I mean, everybody was just like, they kind of cancelled every flight because they didn't know what was going on.
They grounded flights
everything.
Pretty much around the world.
And of course, everybody was irate, going, "Oh, we're not even going to America. What's going on? Oh, I don't care."
I'm just trying to go to Mallorca.
I'm just trying to go to Mallorca or Ibiza or wherever, trying to go somewhere in Europe, and they couldn't. And they were throwing a fit about it. And I mean, on one side, they didn't know what had happened.
Yeah.
They didn't know it was a terrorist attack. They just thought it was just some terrible accident that happened in America that didn't affect them.
Or it was a terrorist attack on America, and what does that have to do with me over here?
Yeah, and I mean, it's, someone in, like, we watched it on YouTube, and someone in the comments, like, imagine being immortalized complaining that you fly on that day, complaining about your flight, you know?
Complaining about your flight being canceled.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, it's terrible, really,
you can forgive them
when they look back and think, oh God,
moment, but when they look back, they're going to surely scold themselves for behaving like that, knowing later what actually was happening.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we went on holiday a few months later, and, we just went on to, like, Crete or something, or Greece. And flight security had been stepped up. I had to take off my shoes and socks, and, and liquids weren't allowed, and everything kind of happened. I think in Britain now, in airports, they're allowing liquids because of technology.
Yeah.
They're allowing you to take liquids on the flight because they can scan it for like any kind of like whatever bomb or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just like the fear was that they were bringing the liquids on to like construct the bomb
while it was on there. Yeah, because I think something happened in regards to that just afterwards.
Somebody
and there was like a shoe bomb,
a Sprite bottle, or
it was like
it
was like something, and there was like the reason the shoes came off is because there was like someone had been found with a shoe bomb.
Yeah,
you know, everybody was on high alert then. You know.
Yeah, but yeah, so my memory of that day is that I was in college already. It was my first year in college, I think, and my classes didn't start till later on. So I was asleep when it actually happened, but oddly enough, like the day before or a couple days before, because I've always been obsessed with New York City. I had always wanted to visit there when I had never been there by 2001. I had not gone there yet for my first time. But I had always wanted to. It was just like, oh, New York City, that's like Mecca. That's where, you know, that is the place to go and be and everything. And my mom, my whole family knew that. So like literally like 2 days before, my mom had heard some contest on the radio or something where the prize was a trip to New York City and dinner on the top in the restaurant on the top of one of the World Trade Center buildings.
Oh, that was right.
Yeah. And I don't know if our listeners can remember, but there had been a bomb in the 90s. Someone set a bomb off in the parking garage underneath one of the World Trade Centers.
Oh,
yeah. It didn't. Yeah. I'm terrible. I should have done research on that before commenting here, but I don't, and I apologize, but I cannot remember whether anybody was actually killed or injured or whatever. But there was a bomb in the parking garage, and it was a big deal at the time, but it was obviously nowhere near as big a thing as September 11th. So anyway, my mom had said that, oh yeah, you should enter that. You know, you want to go to New York City. And I had just said some kind of flippant thing like, I'm not going to enter that at top of the World Trade Center. Like, are you crazy? You know, no way. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then so that morning I was still asleep and she like looked in and she said, something's on the news. They just said a plane or a helicopter or something's flown into one of the World Trade Centers. I just thought I'd tell you if you want to turn on the TV and see. And I just was like, oh yeah, I told you I didn't want to go have dinner on the top of the World Trade Center. You know, I just said something like that. And so then like a few minutes later, I went ahead and got up so I could get ready for school, and I turned the television on, and it was just like, I think 2 planes had already flown in, and you know, it's just a moment of your jaw just drops because you're like, what is going on? At the time, they didn't know, was it an accident? They
thought it was pilot error. A lot of them were reporting it was pilot error. With the
first plane, anyway.
The first plane was like, oh, this pilot, you know, he just didn't know where he was going. And
I didn't know. I just assumed when my mom had
maybe
told me
he had
that,
a heart attack and, you know, whatever.
When my mom had told me that, it didn't even like register to me that it was a commercial airliner either. I just thought, because there's so many planes and helicopters and everything going around New York City giving tours, you know, aerial tours all the time. So I just thought, some like helicopter tour or something accidentally flew in, you know. It's like, that's terrible, but you know, a terrible accident. And but then it was obvious when I turned on the television that it wasn't an accident, and so I'm just sitting there watching, and the other plane had flown in, and they're talking about trying to ground all the planes in the country, but one was not responding, and that was the one I think that they crashed later into the field. Then there was the Pentagon. A plane has just hit the Pentagon, and I'm just like, what is going on? America is under attack, you know.
Yes.
And it's just like, what? You know, all planes are being grounded, but we don't have contact with this one plane, and so it's just like, oh God, where's the fourth one gonna fly into? You know, but it ended up in the field. Thankfully, I mean, you know, the passengers took that situation into their own hands. and minimized the damage in that situation.
So I think that one was heading for the White House or something. We're not too sure what their destination was.
Well, I mean, they don't really know, do they? They can just kind of guess because everybody died.
Yeah.
So then I'm gonna walk in. My mom is getting ready for work, and I'm gonna walk in and tell her, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I want to stay at home today. We don't know what's, because everybody was super paranoid. Like, what is going to happen next? Where around the world, especially after the Pentagon happened and it wasn't just contained in New York City anymore. In the States, we were just like, where's the next attack going to be all day long? And even probably for the rest of the week, we were just all like on edge. Everybody in the country was on edge. What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
This seemed like super organized, and it was just like, how organized though? What's going to happen? But as I walked in there to tell her, as soon as I walked in her room, she had the television on in her room as well. She was in the shower, and the first building started to collapse, and I just felt sick.
Yeah.
You just felt absolutely... There aren't any words, actually. You can't... It's seeing something like that and knowing the number of people that are in there. I fear that kids who didn't experience that firsthand and who watch movies with all this CGI nonsense, they're gonna be numb to it.
Yeah, desensitized,
yeah, because it was just, I mean, it's the closest thing our generation has to like having experienced World War II or something like that, seeing an office building that is that tall, and that every one of those teeny tiny windows is an office with a person in it.
Well, I mean, and then of course, it's like people jumping out and stuff.
And you could see that.
And you could see it happening.
You could see it happening.
People just jumping.
And you know
hear
how
them
tall...
and stuff like that, because the news cameras were that close. And...
Well, I don't know if you could hear them, but you could see them.
There was people on the ground, because before they collapsed, the people were on the ground filming. Like the local news in New York and stuff were filming, and they were just pointing up at them, and they were right underneath them, because they could just see the smoke and everything.
Yeah.
And people couldn't get down to the ground.
Yeah.
Because the plane had gone straight through. And basically
the fire was in the way.
Who were above that, and so they were just jumping out because they were like, oh, it's the fire's whatever.
Yeah.
And then it just started coming down, so it was just like.
Yeah, I remember just screaming at my mom. The buildings are collapsing, and she was just like, what do you mean collapsing? And I was like, I don't know, they're just crumbling. The first one did, and then I think it was a few minutes later before the other one did. But the first one just came down like it had been demolished. And I hate to even say that because there's all these conspiracy theorists who think that it was controlled collapse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't. It just wasn't. But it did look like that. The way it came down, just kind of right on top of itself. It didn't fall to a side like a tree or anything. Well, I don't know what you would expect, really, but and it was just.
That's because there was a lot of people a lot of conspiracy theorists have come out saying, well, no, it wouldn't have happened like that. The thing would have just toppled over and crushed many buildings in the process. It wouldn't have come down.
Which it did. I mean,
well, it did.
There were blocks that were destroyed,
There were blocks, yeah.
And then, you could see the people running up the street. They were running to try to get away from the destruction, and it was just really like something out of a movie. It did not feel real.
Yeah, when you look at the footage, it looks like something out of a movie. When you see the second plane hit, because the cameras were already on, rolling for the first one, watching the first one, and the second plane just went douche into it, and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
It's like, it was like a movie.
Yeah.
And then they both came down. It was just like, one of those.
And my stomach I feel sick right now, even like remembering it, because I can still see it. I can see it so clearly. And you know what? I went later on that afternoon to the gas station for for some reason, to go put gas in my car. I don't know why. I think I just felt like I needed to get out of the house. I didn't go to school that day because I just literally sat on my bed watching my television, watching the news footage and the coverage all day long, like without stop, just sitting there, just totally mesmerized by what I was seeing. And by the evening time, I was just like, I need to get out. I don't know why I went to put gas in my car. Maybe because I was going to go to school the next day. I don't know. But I remember going out. And you have to remember, I'm in a city. I mean, we live, you know,
in Austin. Yeah,
at the time,
it's the capital of Texas too.
We didn't live like downtown or anything. But there's always traffic in this city, and especially I went in the evening, sort of like around rush hour ish time. And I remember there was like no cars on the road. It was like a dusky kind of evening too. It was a little bit like dusky. I don't know. It was just so eerie, and there was nobody out. It was just like, it felt very much like everybody was afraid to leave their house. You know, or maybe, I don't know, maybe they weren't afraid, but maybe they were just too sitting in front of their television. But it was just the weirdest. It was like a ghost town. It was very, very weird, very surreal, just horrible. I don't know. I mean, and it was like that for the next week. Yeah. You know, but you mentioned how once the flights started back up again and people were complaining or whatever, and I can understand the complaining in Britain, but I remember for that week, probably a few months afterward, America was very much not like it is today. We were all together. We were just like, we're going to do what we need to do. You know, people did not like President Bush, even at that time, but everybody was just like, you know what, I'm going to listen to my president. He came on to give the State of the Union address shortly after that. I can't remember. Just a couple days later, I think.
He addressed the nation on the evening of the attack.
Yeah, well,
I think he came out. He must have done. I mean, you know.
I don't know if it was that evening, but the State of the Union, I think, was already scheduled, so he did it. And I can remember he came out and said, "The state of our union tonight is strong." He said that, and I just burst into tears because it's just like, I'm going to choke up now talking. I feel like silly, but yeah, it was a very, very intense time, and obviously, like, the memory of it is still very upsetting, even 18 years later. So, and I'm sure it is for all of you listening. I don't know. I would like to hear your stories. I don't know how we can get you to. If you want to type them up,
type them up and tell us what you were doing when it happened and what you were feeling.
Yeah, if you want to tell us your stories, film yourself telling the stories, or type it up, share it on Facebook. If you already have it posted somewhere, just tag us and we'll go look, because I definitely want to hear from all of you guys about it if you want to share your memories of September 11th. And I know it was yesterday, and so we're like a day behind, but these podcasts only come out on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so
yeah, they do.
Yeah. But I'm like drained now.
Yeah. I mean, just as a brief aside, we visited it was almost on the 10th anniversary too, actually. New York.
Yeah.
In 2010, and we went to Ground Zero and we recorded, funnily enough, what we're doing now. We recorded our experience and where we were at the time and everything for inclusion in the museum. Mm-hmm. So I guess to be played at random. So if you visit, you may hear our voices. You know, you never know, because I'm sure thousands of people did it.
Yeah.
And they were just constructing the new World Trade Center. I think it was just one. Tower.
Yeah, we haven't been back.
Since then. Yeah, so
almost 10 years ago now.
And we've got a couple of friends and listeners in New York too. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
I don't know what else to say either. I mean,
if you have never been to New York City, I definitely recommend going. Yeah. it's a very safe place. It's fine.
It's fine, yes. Yeah. You can go there. It's fine.
Actually, I've never felt unsafe in New York. I think my first time visiting, I can't remember when it was, maybe in like 2004 or 2004, I'm going to say. I can't remember. I think it was the summer of 2004, maybe 2003. And, you know, I went and saw the site. It was just a site at that time. They weren't building anything. They were still
cleaning it up.
Yeah. I mean, really, it took that long. And then when I went back, you know, they're starting to build things. And then when you and I went back, I couldn't believe the progress, the change, you know. But yeah, we haven't been back for like 10 years almost now. And but I never feel unsafe in New York. There's always policemen everywhere, and they're very nice and very helpful. If you need anything, you can just go up to them.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very, very good place to visit, and I would definitely say put the World Trade Center site and memorial and whatever else all they have. They've got a bunch of stuff around, a lot of new stuff there now. Yeah. I definitely say that's worth a visit. So.
Yeah, put it on your itinerary.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys listening.
Thanks for listening if you got through this episode.
Yeah, it was a rather emotional one to record. Rather somber, yeah. So we promise that we won't... Oh, we'll try not to, hopefully.
We'll try not to, no.
Episodes like this again. But we just felt it was something that needed to be said.
Had to be said, yeah.
And I think it's interesting to hear from you, too, because you're British and you don't... I think in this country, we forget that there were 67 UK citizens who were killed in the planes that crashed.
Oh, yeah.
And there were people from 90 different countries, I think.
When we looked it up. People from all over the world.
From all over the world. Yeah, people were affected all over the world. This was definitely not something that was just contained to New York City and was just
Americans,
and just an attack on New York. You know, we in the rest of America felt it and were affected and are still affected, really.
Yeah.
So... we thought it was important to say, and we appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.